Michael W. Hall, known as the Paranormal Lawyer. He's an attorney. He spent many years doing investigations. He's helped with MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network. He spent a lot of time doing cases and involving clients with notable ufologists or figures who study UFO reports, encounters, including Kevin Dave from the USS Princeton, which is part of the Nimitz Battle Group, the Tic Tac UFO encounter. You guys have probably heard about that on the recent news the Pentagon's put out in recent times, as well as Travis Walton and his initial case back in 1975. There's a lot that he's going to be telling us about what's known as the Wilson Memo. How many of you guys are familiar with the Wilson Memo when it comes to UFO studies and reports? So that's awesome. I'm glad that almost probably very few people here know what this is. It's a leaked information about a very important group that looked into not just UFOs, but maybe even crash material. This is really important. If you guys have studied this, this is what we might call the smoking gun. This is an important part of this, is that there's so much to the UFO subject. It's not just strange objects in the sky. What Michael is going to tell us is that governments, specifically particular people and agencies involved, have had an eye on this and a close, intimate involvement for many years. So please give me a big hand in welcoming the Paranormal Lawyer, Michael W. Hall. Come on up.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, Daniel. Very good introduction there. I'll tell you what, Daniel has done a yeoman's duty during the entire emceeing of this event for the weekend here. It's very nice that you guys have local investigators and talent like Daniel Allen Jones to be able to step into these programs and organize them after all this shutdown we've been through for the last year. So it's nice to be, congratulations to all of you, by the way, for being at the very first opened up again conference regarding UFOs and the paranormal. I'm hoping even in the back you guys can hear me. If you hear me in the back, give me a thumbs up. Okay. Alrighty, great. What I thought I'd do is tell you a little bit about myself. I'm going to speak on a few topics that I think you'll be very interested in hearing. And if we have any time in the end, I am going to attempt to go out here and just meet some of you folks if you have that inclination, because I'd like to find out if anybody else out here has some interesting stories. I'll bet you do. And of course, you come to these conferences, you don't get a chance very often to actually explain why you're here, what your interest is. If, by the way, there's anything that piques your interest as far as a question you have during my talk, feel free to interrupt me. It's going to be very informal, and I can probably hear your question if you shout from here. But anyway, let me tell you a little bit about Michael W. Hall, JD. You don't see too many lawyers in these kinds of settings under the paranormal, but literally, I got interested in the paranormal, in UFOs, ghosts, Bigfoot, because I'm from Seattle, from the state of Washington, at a very young, early age. I think I started out with comic books, you know, just the Superman, the Batman, the interest in the idea that we might have other planets with life on them. And then, of course, it goes from there into the dime novels, you know, and the Eric Von Däniken series and Sitchin and all those things. But I'll tell you what, I've always been involved and interested in that, even though I can't really point to the fact that I had like an experience myself. I didn't really have anything I can remember. Of course, we all have to keep in the back of the mind, maybe we have and we don't remember, right? But the idea is that literally, I decided to go to law school, and when I became a lawyer, I decided, you know what? I'm always interested in this strange paranormal stuff, and now I'm a lawyer. I can help the researchers, the investigators that I know personally with their legal issues, potentially. I mean, contracts, NDAs, you know, kind of any kind of thing that would come up for a legal issue that anybody might have with a business, 501c3, or those kinds of things. So I've been doing that for a long time. I started out as a field representative for APRO, the Aerial Phenomena Research Organization. Anybody remember that? Very old, but very nice investigation company out of Tucson, Arizona. In 1974, I was with them. And then, of course, later on, I became a consultant to MUFON since 1995. They have different kinds of consultants, legal and medical, and all sorts of interesting professionals in that organization. And then I started representing some pretty famous ufologists after a while. Anybody know Peter Davenport from the National UFO Reporting Center? He's been a client of mine for almost 3 decades. Let's see, Dr. Richard Haynes from NARCAP. He's the NASA retired astronomer guy who basically ran the pilot reporting agency. I don't know if you remember NARCAP, where actually pilots of military, commercial, even private pilots can report seeing UFOs without having to be outed and worried about their job. That's Dr. Richard Haynes. And of course, Kevin Day, Chief Petty Officer Kevin Day from the USS Nimitz group, the retired guys that were all involved in the 2004 Tic Tac UFO sighting. Now, I'm sure you're all familiar with the Tic Tac idea of a shape of a UFO, right? Can you imagine, as Commander Fravor once told me, flying in his F-118, and all of a sudden, about a half mile away from his cockpit, he's telling me, there is a 40-foot long object that looks just like a Tic Tac breath mint, hovering over in front of his airplane. And he says in a split second, that thing came from a quarter mile away and zipped past his actual cockpit, which just disappeared. Can you imagine the technology that it takes to actually do that? People say, well, it could be a drone, it could be something that we have or some other country. And Commander Fravor was pretty much adamant that he doesn't think it's anything that we've got. So that's been fascinating for me to get involved with all the Nimitz encounter folks. Also, Grant Cameron, the UFO researcher par excellence from Canada. Anybody heard that name, Grant Cameron? Okay, well, I'm going to get you up to speed on how important Grant Cameron has been to this entire planet in just the last few months. I'm going to talk today a little bit about what they have called. How about Richard Dolan? Richard Dolan, does that ring a bell for a lot of folks? Yeah. Richard Dolan has coined the term, the Admiral Wilson Smoky Gun UFO Memo of the Century. I think some of you might have heard that term. Let's see a raise of hands of this Admiral Wilson Memo. Okay, good. Well, not everybody, and I'm going to be able to tell you a little bit about that. It's kind of interesting because January 2nd of 2019, I literally get an encrypted text on my cell phone. And I've never received an encrypted text before. So I was a little alarmed, what is this? And it takes a little software to download to figure out what the encryption is. But it said, very short, Michael, I have a situation. I'm about ready to drop a major UFO bomb. And I need to run it by you as the paranormal lawyer. Now I get this, that's from Grant Cameron, and I'm going, oh my word. When Grant Cameron tells you he is about ready to drop a major UFO memo, bomb, whatever he's going to call it, you sit up and take notice. So basically, I get a hold of him finally, and he tells me of a story that happened to him just a few weeks before he texted me when he was at a conference, UFO conference, like he goes to a lot of them. And literally a person comes up to him after his speech and says, Mr. Cameron, I have a document I think you would be interested in seeing. I think it's important. And of course, Grant had to get out of there quickly to go to another speaking engagement during that same seminar. And he said, listen, can you email it to me? Because I don't have a lot of time right now. And he says, Mr. Cameron, I only need 5 minutes of your time. That's it. Grant acquiesces. The guy opens up his laptop tablet, shows him the first page of a detailed memo that Grant Cameron said his face went ashen when he read it. He literally saw names and unidentified special access programs and dates that he knew from his own research matched up. And literally, Grant says, where did you get this document? It turned out to be 15 pages, single-spaced. And it is a transcript of an interview that a Dr. Eric Davis did. Anybody ring a bell with Dr. Eric Davis, that name? Very famous government scientist, insider, who worked for NIDS, the National Institute of Discovery Science, Robert Bigelow, and with Edgar Mitchell and all those guys. This memo is Dr. Eric Davis's notes of an interview he had with Admiral Thomas Ray Wilson, who at the time was the Joint Chiefs of Staff, second in command of all the military division intelligence departments, the high-level Joint Chiefs. And he's interviewing Admiral Wilson about the supposed reverse engineering programs for UFOs that the government has. And of course, I don't know if you heard the story about this memo, but literally the bottom line is this memo confirms that the US government and the military is in possession of an interstellar retrieved craft that can travel through space, our atmosphere, underwater, and get this, through dimensions. Literally, that's what this memo is talking about from high government scientists that the Admiral is talking about. Now, the story goes, Admiral Wilson found out about this program, called these guys up eventually and said, there's been a mistake here because you have not read me into your program of crash retrievals. I'm J2, I'm in charge of whatever you're doing. I should know. The program director, the security director, and their attorney got together with the Admiral and said, sir, I'm sorry to tell you this, but you don't have the need to know what we do. Now, can you imagine any private subcontractor telling the Joint Chiefs of Staff, guy that's in charge of all the intelligence departments of all the military branches, that, sir, you don't have a need to know. So here's the deal. These guys literally got browbeat by the Admiral on a special meeting that they had in one of those SIFs, special information facilities where you can't have any electronic devices in there and stuff. They were meeting in person. And during that period of time, the Admiral was trying to get to the idea of what are these guys really about. His feeling was initially that they were probably working on some retrieved technology from Chinese or Russian programs to figure out what was going on with the other countries, but then they used the UFO moniker as like a cover-up. That would be an awesome way of kind of covering up certain programs that you're working on. And he kept asking them questions, are you guys dealing with Chinese technology retrieved? No. Are you dealing with Soviet? No. Well, who has the government oversight to these programs that you're working on? And they said, well, sir, you got to realize there's no government oversight. There's no military oversight. There's no White House intervention or oversight, and no congressional oversight at all in what we do. And these guys literally are a black budgeted special access program that does this and has for decades. So Admiral Wilson says, well, if you're not Russian, if you're not Chinese, I mean, it's not ours, is it? No. He says, well, what are you working on? At that point, the security director for this program looks to their attorney and says, well, what do we do? The admiral has now said that he's going to go to his Pentagon buddies over their heads, which he is supposedly the head, to really get into this if they don't tell him. He said, okay. The attorney gives them the nod, which I thought was funny. You got people in there and attorneys are still working behind the scenes, but they tell him then, sir, we are literally working on extraterrestrial craft, not made of this earth, not by human hands. This was a shocker to Dr. Eric Davis when he was talking with Admiral Wilson in the back seat of his staff car at the McCarran International Airport behind the E&G building during this interview. And of course, then he says at that point, this is extraterrestrial? You're kidding me. No, we're not. This is a true program, and we are working on retrieved and reverse engineering of programs and technology that actually exists. Now, that's one point of view from one document called the Admiral Wilson Smoking Gun Memo of the Century by Richard Dolman. But in reality, the guy who actually wrote the memo, Dr. Eric Davis, just 2 months ago, came out on a podcast, Stephen Greenstreet's broadcast, and confirmed on that program that indeed Eric Davis himself has briefed all the Senate Intelligence Committee members regarding the crash retrieval and reverse engineering of UFOs, of interstellar craft not made of human hands. That's another confirmation from the same guy who actually wrote the memo itself. This document, this 15-page, single-space document that names names and programs and the idea that we are literally working on this extraterrestrial technology has been fascinating to everyone. It took Grant Cameron and myself well over 6 months to vet this document, to see if I could find any mistakes, any discrepancies in there that would discount what it was saying. And I had not found anything that would be suspicious. There is in the last page of this document, and by the way, before I get any farther, I want to let you know that I have a limited supply for free for each one of you, your own version of the actual Admiral Wilson Smoking Gun Memo that was released on Twitter anonymously. And I brought a bunch of them with you and stuff. I don't want anybody to think I'm like making money off of this super secret document, so I'm giving them away. And I'll be over there at the thing after my talk if you want to come on over and grab one. I think I've got 50 of them, so I'm not sure if I'm going to cover everyone. But the last page of this memo, you're going to be fascinated to hear, literally throws a curveball into this entire thing, because Admiral Wilson, when he was finished with this interview with his super secret special access program guys, He went back to the Pentagon and talked with a few of his colleagues, because he's as high as you can go. A few of his colleagues and said, "You'll never guess what I found out, and the fact that these guys are actually doing this without any intervention or oversight." And his colleagues, some of them that were in the know, there was like two of them, told him, "You need to back off. You need to drop this. If you go forward with this kind of inquiry any farther, you're going to lose at least 2 or 3 stars, your pension, any future, promotions at all." Now, he thought that was a little strange. Some of these colleagues that he's known for years are telling him this. One of them in particular was a gentleman by the name of Jacques Gansler, a high-level Pentagon official. Literally, Jacques Gansler buttonholes him after he hears that he's talking about this at the Pentagon, and tells Admiral Wilson, "Hey, listen, you need to quit on this whole idea of looking out for these programs. Yeah, they exist." And he says, he confirms to Admiral Wilson, UFOs do exist. Here's the curveball. Then he says, alien abductions don't exist. And what it threw him for a loop was, wait a minute, how can aliens be here and all these stories about abductions, and then you're showing me aliens don't abduct people? Maybe it's the military, maybe it's the MyLab programs or whatever, maybe he's thinking that. But here's my take on that last page of the Smoking Gun Memo where it mentions that. I believe that Jacques Gansler was tasked by the rest of the Pentagon chiefs of staff to talk with Admiral Wilson and give him some misinformation at the very last, wondering if Admiral Wilson at one time goes rogue, wants to spill the beans to the public and tell everybody what's going on. They're going to throw in some disinformation into that memo that literally will make him look like incredulous to the public by saying that alien abductions don't exist. So that's my take on the thing. Everything else in the memo, as you will read your own copy, you get to take it, I'll sign the back of it if you want. The idea being that you're going to see the detail involved in this thing and the confirmations that are there. Let me tell you just a quick kind of like story that I got involved, during this process, and what happened to Grant Cameron and myself when he discovered this Smoking Gun Memo, literally. At one point, I get a text from the gentleman who actually gave Grant Cameron the memo, who lives in Australia. His name is James Rigney, who literally found this document in the old estate documents from Edgar Mitchell, the astronaut's estate. Edgar Mitchell, as we all know, was involved heavily into UFOs and the paranormal for many, many decades. When he died, all of his estate paperwork was going to be thrown out by his family. They weren't interested at all in the subject matter. You can imagine what kind of documentation, information, secrets like the Admiral Wilson Smoking Gun Memo could have been in all those documents. Well, James Rigney befriended the family and was able to go through the documents. He immediately saw this one and he goes, "Oh my word, this is important." So in reality, what happened was James Rigney then, after he discovered it and gave it to Grant Cameron, my client, and we were vetting it for 6 months, all of a sudden I get another mysterious text on my phone, and it's from James Rigney, who says, "Michael, the memo has been released anonymously on Twitter." Does anybody remember that incident? Reddit and Twitter, It was a very important day, I believe, on the history of the planet, and I'll tell you why. There's only one moment in time when any given planet in the universe, the inhabitants finally understand that they are not alone in the universe. That happens once on a planet. Guess when it happened on this Earth? June 6th, 2019 at 7:43 p.m. That's when the memo was released on Twitter. Now, when it was released on Twitter, I had a little bit of advantage going, is this the real thing or not? Because I had the original copy, from my client, Graham Cameron. And so I'm thinking, oh my word, this is going to be taken down immediately, like they always do. It's going to disappear, and no one is going to know that this thing is now in the public domain. So I decided that evening, was a Thursday night, I can never forget this, that I need to get that document off of Twitter, download it, and prove that it was posted by someone else. And initially I thought, well, what do I have to take the time? Well, initially I tried to just pull it up and screenshot it and print it out. If you've ever tried that on the internet and those pop-up ads come up and obscure some of the text on what you're trying to document, drove me nuts. I could not believe that I wasn't being able to get the full document documented off of Twitter. I then thought, well, why don't I just release my copy, which is very readable. You're going to get an exact copy of what I have for free tonight. And I'll just release that now that it's in the public domain. But then I put my lawyer hat on. This is about midnight now. I go, well, what if this is a disinformation release? Where literally they might be getting out a bogus document very similar to the original, but it's not the real thing, and there could be misleading information in this document that they're releasing on Twitter. So then I thought, I can't release mine. So, long story short, what I ended up doing, you're gonna love this. I ended up going to my iPhone. Remember the iMovie app that we all play with every once in a while? Short 3-minute trailers or whatever kind of film you want to put together from your photos, your camera roll. I literally made a small movie of the Admiral Wilson memo as I scrolled down through it on Reddit and Twitter. And slow enough that people could read it, right? But get every single word and the format correct into the document. The funny thing is the thing had some cheesy music in the background on my, app thing in the phone, so I couldn't figure out how to get rid of that. So I ended up having a 5-minute movie with some background music of the smoking gun memo. And now it's about, 5 in the morning. I finally got this accomplished, and I'm thinking to myself, thank God I have now at least documented the fact that this thing is out in the public. So I literally sent that document, that movie, around the world. I sent it to Grant Cameron, I sent it to James and everybody that was involved in the whole process. I sent it to Richard Dolan, literally, because obviously he's one of the heavyweights, the UFO historian and researcher. And at about 6:30 in the morning, I fell exhausted in bed, having worked all night long preserving this major document that I knew was going to blow people out of the water around the world. When what happened was, I get another phone call immediately from James Rigney in Australia saying, Michael, they're not going to believe this. Richard Dolan's on the air right now claiming that you leaked the Admiral Wilson memo. Oh, did my life change immediately after that. Because obviously it wasn't me who released the memo. I was just preserving it and then finally singing around and everything. But here's the kicker that I did. Now, I don't know if you're going to appreciate this, but I think it was a little stroke of genius that I came up with at the very last minute. I thought to myself, what if I copyrighted this document? As an attorney, I know how copyrights work. I know how the whole thing, and I'm thinking, wait a minute, it's not my document. I can't copyright the Admiral Wilson Memo. Everybody's heard about it, nobody's seen it. This is the real thing, but I said to myself, well, wait a minute. If I copyright this document, put my little copyright notice at the very bottom, which you'll see on your copy here, I'm going to dare someone to come forward and challenge my copyright. It's like a trap. And no one came forward. But of course, Richard Dolan sees my copyright at the bottom of the page, and some of the other things that, of course, the emails and everything that I sent to everybody says, Michael Hall, Grant Cameron's attorney, has now released the smoking gun memo of the century, he calls it. And by the way, if you're going to call a document that confirms the existence of life on other planets here on visiting Earth, the smoking gun memo of this century, I think that's an understatement. My word, this would be the smoking gun memo of all time. So my contention is that literally, as of June 6th, 2019, at 7:43 p.m. in the evening on that day, when this document was released on Twitter, the entire planet changed. Now, we've all had these theories, these suspicions. We've seen people talk about secret space programs, all sorts of travel, time travel, jump rooms to Mars, and the moon, and those kinds of things. But we have never had an actual document that's not classified, by the way. I want to make sure that you know that I vetted this document so much I didn't want to even get near releasing a homeland security issue for me and my client. It's not classified. It's in private notes between Dr. Eric Davis and Admiral Thomas Ray Wilson. When you have a document at that level, 15 pages, single-spaced, and detailed like that, that really is a game changer for the planet. I think in probably 150 years, even longer than that, people are going to look back at this time that we're living in right now and realize this is when it actually started. I need to congratulate everybody here for literally having the foresight to be born when you were. To have a 50-yard center seat to the biggest Super Bowl event of all time. It's happening right in front of our very eyes right now. Thank you. You've been very indulgent. I appreciate your time with me today. Like I said, we've got some time for questions if you want. Other than that, I will turn it over to my colleague Daniel Allen Jones to get you guys back on track here. Thank you for your time.
If you liked this video, be sure to check out our other content and get connected on our page and social media sites. Every day, new discoveries are being made all across the world and beyond, so let's work together to find out what's next. And remember, we won't know if we don't go. I'll see you in the vortex.